Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really zeroing in on project schedules.
Yeah,
You might think of them as just, well, calendars with tasks, but in complex projects, particularly construction, they are just absolutely fundamental.
that's right.
We've got a great chapter lined up that really gets into the core of what makes scheduling tick, and that's our jumping off point.
Exactly. I mean, think about any ambitious undertaking, getting a building up, launching a product, even, organizing a big event,
Always a ton of interconnected pieces.
always. And what our sources show us today is how a project schedule sort of acts like the brain of the whole operation, coordinating all those parts.
Right.
We're focusing on a chapter that breaks down not just the definition, but the real practical reasons why it's so vital.
And that's precisely our mission for this deep dive. To give you a clear picture, even if your closest encounter with construction is dodging sidewalk closures,
All right.
of why these schedules are so incredibly important, the different shapes and sizes they come in, and the serious value they deliver.
You might be surprised, actually. Understanding this stuff offers some useful insights for tackling, any complex project you might be juggling yourself.
Definitely. Okay, let's dive right into it then. Why are these schedules such a big deal in the first place?
Well, just picture the sheer scale of a construction site. Our source highlights that you can easily have hundreds, maybe even thousands of individual activities,
Wow, yeah.
and they all need to happen in a specific order. Without a schedule, it would just be total pandemonium.
Right.
It's like trying to cook a massive holiday meal,
Yeah.
a dozen different dishes, different timings, oven temperatures, but with no recipe or plan.
Okay, that analogy works perfectly. It's all about that orchestrated timing.
Exactly. The schedule is that recipe. It ensures each trade, every delivery, all the equipment arrives just when it's needed.
And the chapter we're looking at, it really stresses how actually creating the schedule forces contractors to do some serious mental legwork beforehand.
It really does.
They're essentially building the project in their minds first,
Yeah.
right? Figuring out step by step who does what materials are needed when, like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, a mental pre-construction.
Hmm.
And what's really interesting and valuable about that is how it forces you to visualize the whole build.
Uh-huh.
By doing that, contractors can spot potential log jams, conflicts, way ahead of time.
Ah, okay.
And this foresight, it drastically cuts down on mistakes and those really costly do-overs.
Yeah, I can see that. Think of a time you started some DIY project without fully thinking it through.
We've all been there.
Maybe you painted a wall before realizing you needed to fix the drywall first. A good schedule, even a simple one for that, makes you think through those dependencies.
Exactly. And in large-scale construction, that proactive planning can save just enormous amounts of money,
Mm,
prevents major delays, rework.
absolutely. It's like having that roadmap before a long journey, and the chapter, it emphasizes how schedules help establish critical milestones too, driving efficiency.
Right.
It talks about things like, the foundation pour, the roof going on, acting as these concrete targets.
Precisely. Those milestones aren't just random dates. They become shared goals that really focus everyone's efforts.
Motivates the team.
It does. When the schedule says the electrical rough-in needs to be done by Friday for the inspection, you see a real push.
Mm-hmm.
And if, despite best efforts, things do slip,
Mm-hmm.
the schedule acts as an early warning system. It allows for quicker adjustments to get back on track.
Instead of just knee-jerk reactions.
Right. It helps you pinpoint which tasks are now critical to expedite, rather than just, say, throwing extra resources everywhere.
So it's not just plotting things out initially, it's a crucial tool for keeping things on track as you go.
Definitely.
The source makes it really clear that the main construction schedule becomes this benchmark, this reference point. You measure actual progress against it constantly.
Precisely. That ongoing comparison plan schedule versus reality on the ground is vital.
Keeps everyone honest.
It does. It lets the contractor see if things are running ahead, behind, or as expected. If the schedule flags a potential delay, they can proactively investigate the cause, take corrective action.
Before it snowballs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before it becomes a much bigger problem. It's like a pilot constantly checking their instruments,
Yeah,
making sure they're staying on course.
makes sense. And beyond just the internal workings, schedules are essential for keeping everyone in the loop too, right?
Oh, hugely important.
Our source really highlights how they bring clarity for all the different players.
Yeah.
The contractor, the architects, the subs, even the client paying the bills.
Yeah, this shared understanding is so critical. A realistic schedule one that everyone buys into, sets clear expectations right from the start.
Uh-huh.
It minimizes those frustrating scenarios where someone feels they weren't told about a key deadline or task dependency.
Right. Avoids finger pointing later.
Exactly. By laying out the timeline transparently, the schedule becomes the central communication tool. Reduces misunderstandings, keeps everyone on the same page about when things are supposed to happen.
That makes total sense. And what about when things inevitably change or delays pop up? Because, let's face it, projects rarely go exactly according to plan A.
Almost never. And that's where the schedule becomes even more indispensable.
How so?
Well, the schedule provides that framework for analyzing the impact of those changes.
Mm-hmm.
If the client decides they want to add a feature, or maybe there's an unexpected holdup with materials,
Yeah.
the schedule can be used to assess how that change will affect the overall completion date, other related tasks, the whole sequence.
So you can have informed discussions.
Yeah, exactly. Informed discussions about potential time extensions or cost adjustments, all backed by a documented plan. It's not just guesswork.
And it's not just about the immediate ripple effects either. The chapter also points out something you might not think of initially. Schedules become critical documentation.
Mhm.
They can even serve as evidence if there are disagreements or, legal issues down the line.
That's a really key point, often overlooked. Regularly updated schedules create a chronological record.
A paper trail.
Sort of, yeah. A record of the project's progress, the impact of any modifications, any delays. If there's a dispute later about who caused a delay or what the financial hit should be,
Yeah.
these dated schedules can provide concrete proof to support claims and help resolve conflicts fairly.
Wow. Okay. And finally, the source mentions one more benefit. Completed schedules become this valuable archive,
Lessons learned, basically.
right? Allowing contractors to look back, see what worked, what didn't, and refine their planning for the next job.
Exactly. Every project is a learning opportunity, or it should be. By analyzing past schedules, contractors can fine-tune their time estimates, maybe identify recurring bottlenecks,
Ah, interesting.
and ultimately just become more efficient and accurate in their future scheduling. It builds expertise.
Okay, so we've really established just how crucial these schedules are. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about the different types of schedule.
Right, because they're not all the same.
Exactly. Our source highlights that the level of detail, the format, it really depends on who needs it and what they need to see quickly.
Precisely. The info you'd give a client wanting a bird's eye view is totally different from what the site superintendent needs for, managing the day-to-day chaos.
Makes sense.
So the chapter introduces the idea of a bid schedule first. This is pretty high level, developed during the bidding process itself.
Okay, so just for estimating costs and feasibility.
Yeah, basically. A rough timeline to figure out if the project duration seems reasonable and what that implies for costs like overhead.
Right, that initial ballpark figure.
Yeah.
And then, assuming the contractor wins the bid, then they develop the detailed roadmap.
That's when the master construction schedule comes in. This is the big one, the comprehensive plan governing the entire project.
Groundbreaking to final touches.
Everything. It's the contractor's main tool for keeping the whole thing on track.
Mm.
But again, not everyone needs or wants that level of minute detail.
So that's where summary schedules fit in.
Exactly. These are the simplified versions. Often they use bar charts, which we'll talk about in a sec.
Mm.
They're great for communicating with stakeholders who just need that broad overview. Owners, funders, maybe even key subcontractors who only care about their part.
High-level milestones, key phases.
Right? And then, getting down to the real nitty-gritty on-site, we have look-ahead schedules.
Okay.
Our source explains these are typically short-term plans, maybe covering just the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Constantly updated.
Constantly. Usually by the site superintendent, getting input from the foreman, the trade teams. These provide that super detailed near-term coordination. Okay, plumbers are in this area Monday, electricians Tuesday.
Yeah.
That level.
So it's definitely a layered approach, detail tailored to the audience.
Exactly.
Now, the source really digs into the 3 main ways these schedules get visualized. The classic bar chart, the logic-focused network diagram, and then the hybrid, the network bar chart. Let's start with the one most people have probably seen, the bar chart or Gantt chart.
Yeah, the bar chart is really the foundational visual. As the source points out, it's just a straightforward timeline. Shows each activity, its start, its end, the duration.
And where things overlap.
Where they overlap, yeah. It's got a long history, Henry Gantt, over a century ago. Used on huge projects like the Hoover Dam, apparently.
Wow. Yeah, you see them everywhere. Our source uses a simple landscape project example. Pretty intuitive, right? Tasks down one side, time across the top or bottom.
And bars showing how long each thing takes. Very visual, very accessible.
That ease of understanding has got to be its biggest plus.
It really is. You can glance at it and get a general feel for the project timeline, how long tasks take. Relatively simple to make, and crucially, almost anyone can grasp the basics. Great for presentations, general updates.
But, like the chapter points out, that simplicity comes with downsides, especially for complex projects. What are the main limitations?
The key limitation, the big one, is that simple bar charts don't clearly show the dependencies between activities.
Ah, the logic.
The logic, exactly. You can see task B is scheduled after task A, but you don't necessarily know why, or if a delay in A will automatically push back B.
Okay.
Using that landscape example again, the chart shows planting after digging holes, but it doesn't explicitly draw the line saying planting cannot start until digging is done.
And you can't easily see the knock-on effect of a delay.
Right. It's hard to see how a delay in digging those holes impacts the overall project finish date. It's like seeing a recipe's ingredient list, but not the step-by-step instructions or why they're in that order.
Right, just events in time, not the cause and effect links. Which brings us neatly to network diagrams. These seem designed specifically to fix that dependency issue.
They are indeed. Network diagrams, sometimes called precedence diagrams, logic diagrams, Peer-Hurt charts, they really focus on illustrating those interrelationships.
How things connect.
Exactly. Instead of just a timeline, they visually map the flow of work as a network of connected tasks. Our source mentions they were developed back in the 50s for really complex stuff.
Industrial plants, missile systems.
Yeah, big, complex projects. And now, thanks to computer software, they're really widespread.
The chapter talks about the activity on node, or AON, method. Can you break that down simply for us?
Sure. Basically, imagine each specific task, pour foundation, install wiring, is a box or a circle. That's the node.
Okay.
Then, you draw arrows between the boxes. An arrow going from foundation to wiring means wiring can't start until the foundation is done.
It's just the sequence, the dependency.
Visually shows it.
Yeah.
What has to finish before the next thing can begin? The landscape example in the chapter shows this well. Think of it like a flow chart for the construction process.
And this is where the critical path method, CPM, comes in. The source mentions how these diagrams help pinpoint those really crucial activities.
Exactly. Once you have that network mapped out, you can analyze it to find the critical path.
Which is?
It's essentially the longest sequence of dependent activities through the network. It dictates the shortest possible time the entire project can be completed in. Any delay, any hiccup at all, in an activity on that critical path will inevitably push back the final completion date. Everything else has some float or slack, but critical path tasks don't.
Like finding the one bottleneck stretch on your road trip that dictates your arrival time, no matter how fast you drive elsewhere.
That's a perfect analogy. So network diagrams give you that vital, if this happens, then that will be affected understanding. Really powerful for planning.
But the chapter also notes they can take more effort to create and aren't always the easiest thing for everyone on site to quickly read and understand.
That's a key practical consideration. They are incredibly powerful for detailed planning, for analysis, but their sort of abstract nature can make them less effective as a day-to-day communication tool for the whole crew.
Looks complicated.
They can look quite complex, all the boxes and arrows. Not everyone on a busy site has the time or, frankly, the training to decipher them quickly.
Which leads us nicely to the third type, the network bar chart. Sometimes called a time-scaled logic diagram, sounds like it tries to blend the best of both.
That's exactly the goal. It takes the easy-to-read timeline format of a bar chart
Familiar.
and essentially layers the dependency information from the network diagram onto it, uses lines and arrows to connect the bars, showing how tasks relate along that timeline.
Okay, I think I can picture that.
So you get the clear start and finish times, the durations from the bar chart, but you also see the line showing this task feeds into that one.
So looking back at the landscape example as a network bar chart, you'd see the bars for digging and planting, but now with an arrow linking the end of digging to the start of planting.
Precisely. It makes it much clearer which tasks can run in parallel, and crucially, you can often trace the impact of a delay visually along those connecting lines.
See the ripple effect.
Yeah, see if a delay in one area is going to push back dependent tasks and maybe affect the overall end date.
And critical path activities are often highlighted.
Yes. As the source notes, they're often shown in a different color, maybe red, or made bolder on these network bar charts. Makes it immediately obvious where the team needs to be most vigilant about staying on schedule.
And it seems like with modern project management software, these network bar charts have become pretty dominant.
They really have. They offer a great balance. They can display a lot of information, timing, duration, logic, critical path in a format that's comprehensive, but still relatively easy for most people to interpret.
Best of both worlds, maybe?
Kind of, yeah. The visual clarity makes them a powerful tool for communication and management across different levels of the project team.
Still depends on good input data, though.
Absolutely. As the source wisely points out, the accuracy of any schedule, no matter how fancy the software, ultimately hinges on the quality of the initial information, the task lists, the duration estimates, and especially the careful thought given to those fundamental dependencies. That often still starts with someone sketching out those connections manually.
Well, this has been a really illuminating deep dive into scheduling fundamentals. It's
Hi.
crystal clear these aren't just documents gathering dust.
Not at all.
They are the absolute foundation of successful construction projects, driving the whole process, maximizing efficiency, keeping things on track, fostering that crucial communication.
Exactly. We've seen how just the process of creating a schedule forces essential planning, helps set and hit milestones, provides that vital control mechanism,
And communicate.
and clear communication, yeah. Plus, it serves as critical documentation if things go sideways. And understanding the different flavors, the simple bar chart, the logical network diagram, the hybrid network bar chart, gives you a real appreciation for how this tool has evolved.
It really does. So, maybe a final thought for everyone listening. As you navigate your own projects, big or small, work or personal, take a moment.
Hmm.
Consider how a more structured scheduling approach might change the outcome. What hidden dependencies, what critical paths might be lurking just under the surface that a formal process could reveal?
Definitely some food for thought there as you tackle your own endeavors.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.